Peace, 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 family. Welcome to the EY Pele Movement Ministries on this evening. As you know, it's going up in the building. I only bring the best on the platform. I'm so humbled and honored to have my brother Kofi Piesie in the building. Our brother, we've been in the ministry together, laboring in the community for years, man. This is a real one right here. You understand? This is a real one right here. Trust and believe that, man. This brother does a lot of work in the community, sharing his knowledge, his intellectual, property, with the community. Our brother's an author, man. He's into music. He has a publishing company, family. So, we're going to dive in. But before we do that, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we're going to be talking about Africa's hair, all right, with the author, Kofi Piesie. Peace, Vibe Tribe. We are back. We get ready to dive in with the author, okay, activist, okay, music producer, publisher. I mean, this brother wears so many hats. he wears so many hats. Brother Kofi Piesie, how you doing this evening, my brother?
I'm well, man. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking, man. I greatly appreciate it, man. I appreciate you also for reaching out to me about your book. And, we're so excited, man. We're going to put it up on the screen so the family can see it. And this is definitely a phenomenal book, man. So, this book right here that you have done, right? We want to talk about it, man. We want to get into it. We want to talk about it. The Africa's hair before, during, and after slavery, family. Check this out, okay? There go the website right there. He doesn't only have this book. Our brother's authored numerous books. Okay, so he has a plethora of books. So, if you definitely want to check the brother out, please definitely check our brother out. There go the website right there, same tree, different branch publishing.com. Okay, you can follow our brother on IG as well as Facebook. All right.
Yes, sir.
So we get ready to dive into it, brother Kobe. So talk to us, man. Why, that title? Two-part question. Secondly, did you do that intentionally during this time where, the book banning is going on, man? So I said, man, I think this is gonna be a perfect timing for this program, man. So brother Kobe, please talk to us, man. Tell us first of all about yourself, your background, and what inspired you, to go into the authorship venture, man.
Okay. First, I'm an author, a writer first before I'm an author. So I'm a writer. I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an up and coming filmmaker. I'm a music producer. I'm a content creator. Now I'm a podcaster. So I wear a lot of different hats. And what made me write the book Africa's Hair before, doing, and after slavery, actually it was a podcast, The Craziest Ish That They Say About Black People's Hair, by Sister LaDosha Wright and Cheryl Morrose. And so watching that podcast, they started bringing a lot of information, correct and accurate information about hair. And Sister LaDosha also put out a documentary called Changing the Narrative, which I'm also in that documentary. So that documentary also inspired me as well to put together a book about our hair, and give us an understanding about our hair. We think our hair is just something to have on top of our heads or something to grow out of our face or on our bodies. But in Africa culture, in our African culture, hair means so many different things. So I wanted to highlight what were we doing, or and also to clear up the myths of the incorrect information about our ancestors didn't groom or clean themselves. So this was a something that I wanted to put together, where I wanted to talk about what
Yeah.
we was doing with our hair before we was encountered by the invaders, and
Mm-hmm.
what we was doing during slavery, and what we did after slavery. So it's all tied into one. So the first book, the first section of the book start off during, and then another section start off. I mean, it's before. Then the
Mm-hmm.
second section is during, and then the third section is after the emancipation of the African. What were we
Mm-hmm.
doing with our hair? So in the book, I talk about. Well, I'll just give you some of I'll give you the names, and then I'll kind of explain why these titles or whatever in the book. So some of
Okay.
the so I have chapter 1 is the comb. Chapter 2 is prehistoric hair. Chapter 3 is the role hair played in Africa. Chapter 4 is Africa in hair in African art. 5 myths of African hair. Chapter 6, nature hair care products in Africa. Chapter 7, what hair looks like after slavery. Chapter 8, the benefactors of black hair. Chapter 9, the bold and courageousness of Melba Tolliver. And chapter 10, do African Americans overspend when it comes to their hair and their beauty? So I wanted to start the beginning of the book out about the comb. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this was a innovative invention that was created over 55,000 years ago. And this tool, what we call the comb, was created to not only style the hair but separate the hair. Also was to clean the hair. So I talk about um the different styles, the different motifs. I even got images in here where we have actually some of the combs look like some of the 60s and 70s combs of the Afro pick, but we have the different motifs on top of the combs. That's a good brother there. Shout out though.
Yeah. Peace and
Yeah,
blessings, brother. Bye for me in the building.
yeah. Yes,
Thank you
sir.
for tuning in, King.
Yes, sir. So after I talk about the comb and the invention of the comb, I go into the prehistoric hair. So I deal with evolution. I don't know if a lot of people deal with evolution, but I deal with evolution. So I talk about a prehistoric man. I talk about the Homo erectus or the Homo ergaster, which is the ancestor to the Homo sapiens sapien. So I talk
Mm.
about a million years ago on how they domesticated fire, and by them domesticating fire, and start to migrate in cold areas and begin to take animal skins to cover themselves. They begin to lose a lot of the hair that they had except over top of their heads, which begins to create these types of myths or these stories containing the hair, that the hair has power, which
Mm.
later on goes into our ancestors believing that the spirit or the soul dwells within the hair, so
Mm-hmm.
we can communicate with the ancestors or communicate with the supreme deity or the lesser deities through the hair.
Mm.
Communication through the hair to reach the soul in order to get those communications from the supreme deity or from the lesser deities or from the ancestors.
Mm.
So after prehistoric hair, we go into the role what hair plays in Africa. So hair plays so many different roles in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I may wear my hair a certain way. You may know that I am a priest, like
Mm-hmm.
the Ashanti priest in Ghana. We'll start in West Africa. In West Africa, we go to the Ashanti tribe, right? We go to the Ashanti. The priests, they wear dreads, but they wear matted dreads. So you would know me to be a priest by this hairstyle that I wear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a status right there, priestly status or religious status. You may know one to be a young girl. Let's say we go to South Africa and we deal in Nabia with the Himba people. The
Yeah.
young girls
Yeah.
where they wore locks over the front of their face. This was to distinguish them that they are a young girl. They is not recognized as an adult in their community yet. So you would this hairstyle was distinguish her as an adult. A young girl, I mean an adult, you would know her as her locks is pushed all the way to the back. So that letting you know that she is now recognized as an adult in her community, but also she's not married yet, and it's another style of representation of letting you know that a woman is ready to marry or a man is ready to marry. Mourning is another status. Is also one may shave his hair, he or she may shave his hair in
Mm-hmm.
mourning stages. So, and after your hair was shaved, the woman would take the hair and then make a wig out of it. We think that now wigs are a phenomenon over here in the 21st century, but it is not a phenomenon in the 21st century. Our ancestors been doing this for years. So I just wanted to not gloss over that. After they going through mourning, they would shave their hair and then utilize the hair to make wigs out of it, to rewear it, or make amulets out of it, because they believe that also healing and protection also comes through the hair when it deals with our culture. Shout, that's another good brother there.
Yeah, man. Hey, shout out to my good brother, the Chief
Mm-hmm.
Fode of
Yeah.
the Gullah Nation of North
Yes, sir.
America, which I'm a proud of. I'm a proud member of, one of the elders that sit on the board there and
Mm-hmm.
development. That's a good brother. He the one who helped me connect with my Mende roots in Sierra Leone. So
Yes.
we definitely had to show him some love. Shout out,
Yes,
big
sir.
bro.
Shout out to him.
Chief in the building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, my man. So
Yes.
please continue.
Yes, sir. And even with yourself having a shaved head, also if you go to Madagascar,
Yeah,
right,
let's talk
in
about that.
East Africa, they would shave their heads. Certain cultures would shave their hair off, and certain cultures would have unkept hair. So you would know that this person is in mourning because of the unkept hair, or you know that this person is sick. Even today, when you see a person goes into the hospital, into the doctor, they not beautified. They might be looking a little rough because they're sick. So this is how you able to identify someone who is sick by unkept hair, or someone who is in mourning by unkept hair or shaved hair, right? You
Mm-hmm.
would know someone to be a king by an elaborate hairstyle that someone would uh would also wear as well. So hair has so many different status. Or you go to, like, if we go to the Sudan has so many different ethnic groups in the Sudan, right? So we will be distinguishing ourselves through the hairstyle. We would know that this person is a part of the Hembra tribe because of a certain hairstyle, and this person will be part of the Bombardero, because of a certain hairstyle um, that they will wear. So it also was an ethnical thing as well, where one was a part of a certain tribe by a certain hairstyle that they wear, or you would know one to be a warrior. Like locks and braids was another hairstyle for warriors. So you will see them wear locks when you go to Kenya. When we look at the not the Masi but the Maasai tribe, they will wear uh locks in their hair with red. Like I have locks with red dye. So dye is also not a natural phenomenon in the 21st century. They was also dyeing their hair with red ochre. So if you go pull up any tribe, well, you go pull up the Maasai tribe, Maasa, that's in Kenya, you will see their warriors with red dye, which is they dye their hair by red ochre with locks or braids into their hair. Mm-hmm.
Brother Bobby said, it's great that you brought that up. It will help for us to know this, dealing with all of the predatory issues coming at our youth, especially girls being targeted by older men. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of confusion will be alleviated by something such as hairstyles. Great information, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, so
Good
so the
share.
so the hair shared so many different things, shared so many different roles. So I talk about the sharing of the different roles. Then I go and I talk about some of the myths. Like they say natural hair, you can't grow natural, natural hair cannot be grown long. Natural hair can is not healthy. So I talk about the Basara tribe, and I
Wow.
talk about the Chiba plant that they actually use. And now most of your hair care products, if you look on the bottle, if it's something that deals with growing hair, it's going to have an ingredient in there called Chiba. It comes from a flower, a groton flower that's in in West Africa, right? They're in 3 or 4 different places in Africa, and they would use this chiba. So I break down how they take the seeds and break down the seeds with water and
Mm.
different butters and oils in order to make this creamy solution that they rub in their hair. And I everything I'm talking about, I have pictures to also validate the things that I'm talking about in the book. So there's tons of images to validate what I'm actually talking about, so you can see it in real time. Also, so I talk about the different, the things that they use, the ingredients that they use. We sold that in our stores, Chiba. Yes.
Yes, we
That's
sure
exactly.
did.
Yep. So that's one of the things, to grow hair with. So, I talk about the different things that they utilize in nature, what I'm saying, such as orchid, which is a clay to dye their hair, ashes, um, um, different types of castor oil, shave butter, dairy butter, greases, all types of things that they utilize within that they grasp within nature from different plants to extract certain things to utilize to do these different hairstyles um, within their hair. And I go on to talk about when we go into slavery, the things that we use while we was in slavery. Once we got on the plantation ships, before you had, they knew about our hair, they knew about those different hairstyles, because I talk about the Atlantic slave trade. Before the Atlantic slave trade, we know that especially the Portuguese jumped this out. So the Portuguese traded back and forth with the people in Central Africa. They traded back and forth with people in West Africa. And I talk about Peter, a Dutch, also Portuguese, and I talk about a Dutch explorer who also wrote a book and had somebody to sketch out the different images of the hairstyles, these multiple hairstyles that he's seen all over Africa. So they knew how important the hair played in our culture. So now when they began to utilize and they don't want to trade and use bodies, right? Once they entered the slave ship, they would shave the hair of each slave that entered the slave ship. This was to dehumanize them. This was to script them of a self-identity of themselves by shaving their hair. So I go a little bit in depth about that, and how they destroy the image of us in slavery, and how it evolves in us overspending later on in this $1 billion industry that we do not own, the health and beauty industry, because our image was destroyed in slavery.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I mean, and it's a tons of other information that I talk about. I talk about Tierney Law, what I'm saying, and how Tierney Law involved where uh before the emancipation, you had some free people of color who bought their freedom, and how the
Mm.
women, especially in Louisiana, was getting all this attention,
Let's talk
and
about
they began to,
it. Let's talk about it.
yeah, and they began to, so that they didn't want to distinguish, because most of the time on the plantation, the women who worked inside the house, they either had to immolate the slave or the slaveholder's wife, which was to try to straighten their hair, or they had to cover their hair up, right? So most of the times on most of the plantation, or they had to wear a wig that resembles the slaveholder's wife's image, right? Because
Mhm.
it was always a back and forth with them saying that their skin color and their hair was unattractive, right? You know what I'm saying? So they had to, tie their hair up. So now when those free people of color begin to be free, buying their freedom, they wanted the women, these free women, to not be separate from those who are still enslaved. So they created Tammany Law in order for them to tie their heads, but also created Tammany Law because the white European women were saying that these free women was getting attention of their white men because our of the different elaborate hairstyles. So I show hairstyles of us wearing these elaborate hairstyles with beads and cowrie shells and feathers and flowers in our hair, which
Mhm.
it started to intimidate the white European woman, saying that their men is getting their men are now drawn to these free women of color. So they created this Tammany Law, and then from there it expounded into the tie down, or what we call the do rag. So I talk about the do rag. So I talk about
Mm.
diary. Then I go into the Afro pick, on how the Afro pick became a political statement, and it was a rebellious hairstyle. I talk about locks in Jamaica becoming a rebellion against the British and so forth. And I talk about the
Mm-hmm.
Afro over here in America. It became a political and rebellious statement, and
Mm-hmm.
the Afro pick was also accessory to that. But I hurt some people feelings and let them know that the Afro pick, the Afro pick with the black power fist, it was not created by a black person. It was created and patented by um 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 a Latin individual. I give his name in the book, but that became one of our accessories for this rebellious Afro hairstyle that we have. So I mean, it's so much information, tons of information about hair within the book, and I can keep talking, but I know we got some other stuff we want to talk. But if you want to get Africa's hair during, before, and after slavery, just go to my publishing company on my website, Same Tree Different Branch Publishing.com, and get your book. That's how you support me. Don't go to Amazon. My books are on Amazon. They're in Barnes and Nobles. They're on Target. .com, they're in Books a Million, they're in Walmart.com, and they're in other places. But how you support me is going to my website and buying my book purchase there. I keep an inventory of all of my books and I ship them off in a timely notice. So that's how you patronize me. Again, patronize the author directly.
Wonderful. We got a question by one of our elders, and Baba Clay. He asked. He said, "Why did we turn to changing the natural way of how our hair grows?"
Why did we change the natural way on how our hair grows? Slavery, slavery destroyed. Like once I said they had been trading with us for centuries. Now they no longer wanted to trade with us where we was trading, and we was trading the natural resources that we had. The natural resources that they wanted to trade now was bodies, right? So by them being in there for centuries and seeing how important a role hair played in our culture and our traditions, the first thing they did was shave our hair on those ship ports and on those slave ships and at the plantations. Now, the word nappy, they began to use this derogatory term called nappy and describe our hair as not even being hair, as being peppercorn, as being turfed, as being woolly, as being matted. They started to use all these derogatory terms to describe our hair. And again, they said that we didn't even have hair. It was something as of an animal. This is where the word nappy starts to devolve at. And now on these plantations, when you got people doing domesticated work, what happens? They begins to talk about the skin tone and your hair over and over. They begin to destroy the image, the total image of our ancestors, right? And then to freedom, now when you get to mulattoes, which people don't use that term anymore, people say it's an ugly term. We're talking about mixed people. So now when those who the master may have raped, because we know the slave master raped our aunties, our sisters, our grandmothers, right? They passed them on to their colleagues. So once you know they would have a child with each other, most of them will have fair skin. Hair would be not considered nappy or peppercorn or turf or woolly or nappy, right? So it became synonymous. The look of them became synonymous with freedom, because even though you had some mulattoes who slave owners, they didn't give a cotton picking. They would sell them off or they would treat them
Mm-hmm.
as such. But you had a lot of them that had benefits. And you had those who would immolate inside the house, that would do domesticated work, who eventually became free. The image of their standards became the standard of freedom. And even after slavery, we think braiding was synonymous with slavery, even though they did do this because this was a style that they could utilize to keep their hair together. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't have all the accessories that they had, the natural resources that they had when they was in Africa, that was taken away from them. And even when
Mm-hmm.
they tried to use the only closer thing that they had to combing their hair with now was a sheep guarding, which was a comb for a sheep, which was causing infections in their scalps, and also taking and breaking their hair off. So the only result was to either tie the hair up, shave the hair off, or braid it. So braids became synonymous with slavery, even though we had been doing that for centuries before we was kidnapped. So now coming out and being emancipated, we no longer want to slave with braids, because braids was synonymous with slavery. Hair wrapped up was synonymous with slavery. Silky, long hair or a certain texture and fair skin was synonymous with freedom. So it completely destroyed our image, and the standard became the European standard, and that standard is still today, even though there's a surge of our people now grasping back into the natural hair industry, where they are no longer using certain things in their hair to damage their hair, or wanting to look a certain way. They want to look the way that their ancestors look, or even look the way that their hair it naturally grows out of their scalp.
Next question is by Brother Bafani. Do you think that the mulatto factor in our history has led to some of our people claiming to be a Native American?
No, not necessarily. When you talk about our people claiming to be Native Americans, right? There are so many different Native American tribes. I talk about this in I co-wrote a couple of books as well. So the spirits of pen. The pen. Which one is it? I can't remember. We got so many of them. Let's see. Okay, right here. From pens, from spears to pens, right? A historical survey in the minds of African warrior scholars, volume 2. This is volume 2. So I have a section in there where I talk about the Native Americans, and I talk about the Native American genetics are Asians. We are not Asians. So I give you the genetics of the Asians and how they ended up migrating across the Bering Strait into America. These are people of Asian stock. So I give you the genetics on that. But I also talk about there are so many different Native American tribes that nobody never mentioned. I talk about in the book, but then I talk about the 5 civilized tribes. So those 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Creek, the Seminole, and it's another one that's escaping my mind right now. But those 5 civilized tribes, what did they do? They embraced the hierarchy and the standard of the European. The European also they adopted the way of life of these Europeans. So they had slaves. I'll say that again. Those 5 civilized tribes that most of the people say that they are associated with. I'm a Choctaw. I'm a Chickasaw. I'm a Cherokee. I'm a Creek. I'm a Creek. Those are people who enslaved our ancestors. They were given slaves by the Europeans, and they also enslaved us as well. And we also during the time of when Florida was going, when you had 2 European powers fighting over Florida, you had a band of the Native American and some of those slaves or those Maroons who Seminoles, so-called Seminoles, began to copulate with those individuals, and only through the womb of a Native American, your child will be recognized as a Native American. Only through the womb. So if I had a child with a Native American woman, then my child will be recognized as a Native American. I wouldn't be because I'm married, or if your sister married a Native American man and had birth, she carried a Native American child through her womb. That child wouldn't be a Native American because it has to come through the womb of a Native American. But we get those mixed up because those 5 civilized tribes that most of our people associate themselves with, they had slaves, and the Creeks was the worst one. After the emancipation, the Creeks it took forever for them to let the slaves go. They was like they wasn't giving their slaves away. They wasn't letting the slaves go. So that is why most of our people are connected to the Native Americans. And when we do a DNA test, we have a little bit of blood, and that is because of the mixing through slavery, that we was enslaved through them. And even when we was helping the Native American, when we was fighting back against the European powers in Florida, we banded together and fought. So there's a little mixing, but you only gonna see 2.3, I mean 0.3, 0.5, barely enough Native American. So how you saying you Native American when you go do your DNA test? But you know, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I feel you, man. That's a whole nother conversation right there.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you, man, we have to deal with it because, this Crown Act, just like I put up there, family, for those who want the reference to it. And this is also for people who say, that we're not dealing with racism anymore. That's just complete absurdity. You had the racist young man, and I'm from upstate New York. I'm from Rochester, New York. Had went into the top store up in Buffalo, New York, and had started taking people's lives away, and then put "here's your reparations" on that rifle. So that doesn't make any sense at all. That we're not dealing with it, especially all the things that we're still facing as it relates to police brutality and people getting off when there's all type of footage. So it has to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be dealt with. And so the Crown Act was passed because you had even young men at school. The one young man, it was televised where he was told that if he didn't cut his locks off, that he couldn't continue wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
It was another young man who was told that he couldn't walk across the stage if he didn't cut his locks out. So if we're not facing discrimination, family, I just have to ask you this question. Why then was this Crown Act just passed? Because this Crown Act was passed so discrimination of hair, of our cultural hair, would not be legal. So if that be the case again, we have to start using logic. You understand? And there's no disrespect, this type of activity is slapping us right in the face, and we still acting like nothing is happening, all because we have these few little rights that we have. You understand? And that's what blinds a lot of our people. It's not like the way it used to be back in the day. Well, okay, you're right to a point, but racism still exists. Discrimination still exists. No, it may not be as intense as it was back then, but it still don't negate the fact that it's happening, because our people coming from Africa, coming to this country, they're still told that they have to give up their Afrocentric name, okay, in order to come to this land. So if it's the land of the free and they want us to freely be us, then why the Crown Act, and then why do we have to give up our names to come over here? So it makes no logical sense. You understand, family? So going back to the topic at hand, though, I don't want to get off track from that. Brother, we talked about the book banning. Is this one of the reasons why, you're pushing literature even more now? Because now, the books are being banned from school. And I love the Kujichagulia spirit that you're working in, the self-determination, because I say this all the time, is that we keep leaving it up to the public schools to educate our children. And this was shows that the African mind has been cut off from African people, because we never depended upon no one outside of our family to train us, to teach us, to educate us about us, right? So now they got this book, man. Come on, let's dig in on that, my brother. Same tree, different branch. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm going so hard is on the publishing, right? And is not only for the book ban. I believe and that we have to tell our stories from our own perspective, right? We, for centuries, have been utilizing other people's material that doesn't look like us. And at one point we didn't have the resources. We still are limited resources, but we have more resources than our ancestors have. So now we can get on a plane and we can go get the primaries for ourselves. We don't have to rely on other people that don't look like us. And then when they get over there, when we talk about the paleontologists or the archaeologists, a lot of those people are biased. A lot of those people don't understand African culture and tradition. So they'll come back with their own worldview and perspective and do their own philosophizing or giving their own opinion on why we doing such certain things, right? And describing our culture and such things as paganism, savage, savagery, so many different derogatory terms because they not understanding. And now we're using the term devil, we're using the word God, or we're using the, we're using so many different things. So I believe that it is very important, especially now in our day and time, since the book bans. They are trying to book ban everything that deals with our culture and our tradition. We barely have enough as it is, but what we do have, they're trying to take away. So now what's going to happen is, if we don't start pushing reading, if we don't start pushing writing, especially writing, then there's our story is going to be completely gone in the next few generations. There is not going to be a reference point for the next generation or the generation the next to go after. They won't know that our ancestors made major contributions to certain things, right? If we don't understand that the importance of reading, and we don't understand the importance of writing, and also publishing those writings to tell our stories from our own perspective. So I made it my business to create my publishing company, Same Tree Different Brands Publishing, and also publish my books or distribute my books through Same Tree Different Brands Publishing, but also get them on these other markets, so because people don't believe or take you seriously if you don't say your book is on Amazon. I don't care about my book being on there, even though my books are on every online print and published booking market there is. I want to be patronized through my own company, but it's important for us to do this so we can tell our own stories from our own perspective and from our own worldview before it's too late. Because if we sit back and we do nothing, the few generations after the next will be completely lost, and they will be following behind and following behind and seeking guidance from other people that does not truly understand them, their culture, and their traditions.
Well said, my brother. Good breakdown. Queen, she says some schools have stopped teaching cursive writing. Our children will not be able to read the cursive writing that has our history. So again, man, I'm grateful for you coming on, my brother. Family, this is a solutionary based ministry here. And I believe a brother like Brother Kofi, we should support him because he is one of the solutions to our problems. Okay. And that's education. Mm-hmm. That's us having literature. I always say this, that we lack confidence because we don't know our accomplishments. I'm going to say that again. Mm. We lack confidence because a lot of us, we don't know our accomplishments. And this is one of the reasons why they did not want us to read. See, this is the reason why Brother Kofi is truly a weapon, okay, for our people. Because he is going to give us the education that we need. See, he has our best interests at heart. Even though he looked like us, he's African on the outside and he African on the inside.
Most definitely.
This is the reason why we need brothers like this, who don't only just look like us, but truly represent us because he have an African mind.
Yes, sir.
And we need to understand that. So guess what, parents? Go on to Brother Kofi's website, start purchasing some of his books, and start educating your children, homeschooling them, because first of all, we're the first teacher. Let's be clear. You as a parent is the first teacher. Mm-hmm. My mother taught me before I went to school. Mm-hmm. My mother taught me how to read. My mother taught me how to write. Mm-hmm. My mother taught me how to talk. Mm-hmm. My aunties taught me how to walk. And we have to get back to that. This is the reason why we need to support brothers and sisters like Brother Kofi, because he truly have a heart for the people, and he's going to tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help us as a nation. Mm-hmm. As a nation. This is nation building. This is true nation building. And see, certain things happen to get us to go back, because all too often we've been holding on to the coattail of the colonizer. Now, I'm not throwing shots at my brother. I know he said this earlier, so I want to be clear. All right. They're not our slave masters. Okay. the colonizer. We've been holding on too long to the coat of the colonizer whose agenda is to enslave us, and it doesn't make sense. Now it's time. And beloved, everything happened for a reason. This is working out for our good. You know why? Because too long have we been dependent upon a colonized system to help us. What sense does that make? Since when did a colonized system help us? Since when did the Jim Crow laws help us? Since when?
Never.
Riddle me that. And for those of you who want to keep looking to the UN, okay, and keep talking about human rights, guess who's sitting on the board? America.
Yes, they are.
A permanent seat. A permanent seat. And guess what? They were sitting on the board when the Jim Crow laws was passed. All right. Check the record.
Yes, sir.
Check the record. Check the record. So for some of you who thinking because you going to the native side, guess who you still asking permission to be tax-free, native person? The same one who enslaved you. Okay. Yeah. My brother, you know, any closing remarks you want to have for the people before we close out on this evening?
Nah, man, I just want to first say, man, I appreciate you for bringing me on to your platform, and it's always a pleasure, man, to come on and fellowship with you, man. I hope this be many more. I think this may be like our third or fourth time back and forth from each other platform, man.
Definitely, brother.
Yeah, so again, I appreciate you. I appreciate your wife, man. I appreciate what you and your wife is doing, man. And you know, again, like I want to say, man, if you want to support me, you know what I'm saying, patronize me directly, and just keep that on your mind for anybody else that is authoring a book. Patronize the author directly. If they send you to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or Books and Million, that's fine. But seek them out first before you purchase through them, right? I mean, before you go to those other platforms. We want the authors to have as much money for their intellectual property as possible, because those splits with those other markets are terrible. I want all my money for all my hard-earned work, my time and my sweat that I put into writing and producing these books for y'all, right? And again, man, let's push forward on the importance of reading books. Let's champion and push forward on writing. Again, the time is now for us to start writing, producing our own manuscripts, and telling our own story from our own perspective and worldview. Because if this book ban get pushed through worldwide, because they already started in certain states, and certain states they already in effect, but if they get everywhere, we're gonna be in trouble. So again, I want to say appreciate everybody. I mean, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody, man, for tuning in, man. And please go patronize my business.
There we have it, family. Make sure you go check our brother out. Remember, EY Pele Movement, we do our ministry on Sundays at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, Facebook Live, also on YouTube. Okay, so make sure you check us out there as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Okay, make sure you hit that notification bell, even on Facebook. Just look right up there. You should see the little window up there for you to hit that notification bell so you can get this content, because it's time for us to return back to ourselves, okay? We have to get broken out of this mindset that we are troublemakers. We're only troublemakers for the colonizer. Family, I'm going to say it again. You have to get this out of your mind that when we talk like this, we're going to cause trouble. We only cause trouble for the colonizer. Keep that in mind. Because as long as we're mentally incarcerated, they know that they can control us. A kingdom united can stand, but divided we fall. Again, thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully we see you on this upcoming week on Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, Facebook Live. Peace.
Can I make this one?
There you go.
Oh, I just wanted to let people know, man, to also go to my new podcast. Me and Nathan, the Griot Palador, have a podcast called the Griot Podcast. Go follow us on Spotify.com right now. That's the Griot Podcast. It's gonna be the best thing smoking. I'm telling you, appreciate it.
Hey, you know it. And we out for real this time. Peace, 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 family. Love y'all.